We are scheduled. We are hit it. We are live. We are live. I think we're live. It's running. Hey, the ticker's on. Hello, everybody. Come on in. Have a seat. Come on in, everybody. We know you're out there. The chat is wide open.
Feel free to contribute. Show today.
It's a special day.
Yeah.
Today's a special day. And that's my notification from wonderful StreamYard. And I need to make my Facebook public. Boom, just so everybody can see us. Absolutely. Come on in, everybody. Come on in. We have some special guests today. It's going to be a fun day. We're going to talk funnies. Lots of funnies. Welcome to the Sunday Funnies for October 18th, 2020. Hope everybody's doing well. Come on in. Come on in. Let us know you're alive in the chat. Hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube. Hit that like button if you're watching on Facebook. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Marv is in the house already. Marv says, hello, hope you're doing well. I was wondering how you came up with the name Arrow Comics. We'll get there. We'll get there. Give us just a second, Marv. We have a little bit of house cleaning to do, and we'll get there. First off, I want to say it's been a crazy couple of months, as I'm sure everybody has been going through their own troubles and turmoils. We hope everybody is doing well. We hope everybody is healthy and good. Everybody on this end is doing well. I officiated a wedding last week.
Oh.
And wish Tyler Zikafus and Rashonda McGee the happiest of marriages. That was a lot of fun. It was a good time. Out at a secret location out on a farm, because I guess they had the police break up a wedding over where you are in New York City.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Too many people, too much going on.
Well, there was one case where there was like 300 people in one building, and they were trying to sneak them in the back, and it's like, you can't sneak in 300 people.
Social distancing, people.
Yeah,
anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Marv, we're going to get to everything here in just a second. We have Ralph and Stu sitting back in the green room, where we have a very special edition of Arrow Comics. I am Randy Zimmerman. I'm an independent creator and publisher of alternative and independent comics. I am a commercial artist, graphic artist. My main specialty right now is sequential art for advertising and educational purposes. Again, if you're listening, here our time. I'm in the middle of Flint, Michigan. In the middle of Michigan, just a little south of Flint, about 2 miles south of the Badwater line. And yeah, exactly. It's more like it's that way. We are right about there. Detroit is down here, and Port Huron is over there. And anyway, absolutely. As we were watching a comedian, and I can't remember who it was now. Paul Rodriguez, I think it was. It says that works real good for Michigan, but Florida, not so much. Anyway, along with me, my co-host today is Daphne Lage. Daphne does.
Hey, good morning.
Introduce yourself.
Sure. It's my name's Daphne Lage, and I'm a cartoonist, illustrator, and comic book artist from New York. I am the artist of the funny animal fantasy comic Tall Tales and the upcoming Ego Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, premiering on Kickstarter January 4th, 2021. You can check out my work and sign up for updates at talltales, TAILS, online.com, and my YouTube channel at Daphne Lage Art.
And that's Lage, Lage.
Yes, everything needs to be spelled out.
And today we are here to focus on Arrow Comics. We're calling this the Arrow Comics Special. We have Ralph and Stu in the house, ready to go, and they will be with us right after the opening. We're going to run that opening now. So hang on, everybody. It's a little longer than usual, not by much, but we have some great Arrow covers, and we have a lot of memories to cover. There's a lot of history here. We hope you are ready. So get that coffee, get that breakfast rolling, or that afternoon or evening drink, and sit back and enjoy yourself. We're going to go back in time quite a bit and relive some hardcore comics history. Here's the opening. And we're here. Hello, everybody. How you doing? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Hey, I'm Ralph. I'm Stu. How do you do? That's an oldie.
Yeah,
Daphne's gonna geek girl just a little bit.
Yeah, I am your assigned geek girl for the next 2 hours.
We love our geeks.
Ralph and Stu, introduce yourself to our radio audience.
All right. Well, again, we are Ralph and Stu. I'm Stuart Kerr. I'm a writer, and this is my partner, Ralph Griffith, and together we are creators of worlds. The Arrow Comics line, the Realm, Deadworld, Oz, a few other things. We've had a pretty good run. We've had a good time.
A few other things.
A few other things.
The fantastic fanzine. Don't let us forget.
Oh,
that's where it all started. Cool. Marv says hello. Hope you're doing well. I was wondering, how did you come up with the name Arrow Comics?
Well, we were trying to get in the front of the Diamond catalog, and so I really all the distributors' catalogs, and of course the A was kind of the way we went. And then we had great taglines that we came up with, you know, when the industry needs a way and Arrow points the way, that kind of stuff.
Our aim is quality.
Our target is entertainment. Our aim is quality.
Yeah, and those could be reversed. You could do that either way and still be right.
I think we did that quite frequently, actually. So
of course, Dave Sims Aardvark got ahead of us with the double A. That's how they managed to sneak ahead of us in the catalog.
Well, they were around a little earlier, too.
And that was back when there was a good dozen distributors, though, right?
Oh, we had at one point, between the big distributors and tiny little ones like Comics Hawaii, you know,
yeah, I remember
there was actually 27 distributors carrying Arrow Comics. Again, some of those were tiny local
I'm sure
ones.
Just stores that had like 4 accounts, you know, but still they would order, you know.
Yeah.
So,
they all added up.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The numbers were good.
But really, way back when, everything started with Fantastic Fanzine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we. I've always been collecting comics since the 70s, and a buddy of mine who lived in the same neighborhood as I did a fanzine called the Fantastic Fanzine. And I was like, oh, man, that's cool.
That was high school days.
High school days.
Yeah.
So we're like, if they can do that, I'm sure we could come up with something.
Well, to be quite honest, we were young, and we had time on our hands. We really weren't doing anything, going to work and hanging out, and we decided we wanted to do something fun and constructive, so we put our time to putting a fanzine together. And the first issue or two was just
tell them about the first one. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Before you go any farther, it's time to remind our audience that we are TVMA DLSV. So you might hear some language and some expletives during our conversation. We're not necessarily meant for kids, but they are welcome to listen in, probably with a parent to explain to them a few words. But just in case.
I don't think you'll have anything to worry about.
I don't think so either, but like I said, just in case.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Way back, fanzine.
We really didn't know anything about publishing, printing, any of that at all. We just knew about comics, and we loved comics. So we went to the Ypsilanti Press, which was the only printing location nearby us.
That was a newsprint web printer.
Yes. They actually printed the Ypsilanti Press, but they would print other things too. So the minimum print run was
10,000,
5,000,
or 5,000.
5,000.
And for us,
okay. And they asked us a couple of questions on what we were doing. One of them was, "Are there any pictures in the?" Well, of course, there's going to be pictures. We're doing comics.
Yeah, I'm drawing. Everybody's drawing.
Now's the time to date yourself. This is how long ago?
Oh, this is 1984. Yeah. There was no Photoshop. There was no Microsoft Publisher or any of these other things. We had to go to a typesetter and pay to have all the type.
When we weren't typing it in ourselves and then just gluing it onto a page.
I was about to say, like, you weren't doing that?
We did a lot of that, yes.
Cut and paste masters. Here we
Yes.
go.
Really.
But they told us if there was any pictures, they need to be screened. Well, we didn't realize there was, in their mind, there was a difference between photographs and drawings. We just thought pictures. So the entire 8 pages of the first issue are gray because we had all the pages screened.
Because every page had a drawing of some sort, but they meant photographs. We didn't know that at the time.
Yeah. Again, we knew nothing when we started. Nothing at all.
So the first issue looked like a tabloid newspaper and had about a 20-30% gray tone all the way through.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Oh, text everywhere. The whole pages were done.
We gave it away free at the King Con that Gary Reed out in. He had a show out in Ypsilanti at that time.
At that point, Gary Reed had a series of stores. He had 3 stores, didn't he? At that point,
Yeah.
And
Did you say Reed is Reed Pop?
No, Gary Reed is Caliber Press.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
This was before he even.
Right.
He was going to do more conventions at that time because he loved comics too, and he was trying to get to know everybody and have them in. And we said, "Hey, we got this fanzine. We'd like to give it away at your thing." And he was like, "Well, come on down."
Because we had 5,000 of them.
Yeah, we had 5,000. We had to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And no advertising, right? This
No.
all came out of your own pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you knew at the time when you printed it, you were just going to give it away.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we didn't expect anybody to pay for it. Yeah.
It was more of
Ralph and I were actually the artists of the strips in there, and
that's scared.
We're not really artists.
No.
Ralph is much better than me, but
now at this point in the Detroit convention scene, Creation Con was probably doing an annual big show, and probably Michael Goldman and Dave Lillard, right? We're doing.
I think even before that, Michael Lester.
Michael Lester.
That's who I was thinking of. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're doing one-day shows at Knights of Columbus halls.
Yeah, he was doing a Fantasticon was one, and I can't remember. I think Extravacon or something was the other one.
That sounds right. Extravacon. Yeah.
And we were regular attendees or setting up on the sales floor, selling, buying and selling comics. Of course, not our own. That was well before that.
Yeah.
But, so we've been kind of in the comic scene for a little while. So, but the good thing that happened is that when we were giving away the book and we were at the King Con, we met a lot of people who were very talented, and
like you said, back then things were different. They didn't have, you couldn't publish your own book, I mean,
and you couldn't get any kind of exposure on the internet.
Yeah, all that wasn't even around.
It was long before the net. Yeah.
Long before. Yeah.
So if you were a young guy or somebody starting out, and you were looking to get your work out there, you would have to go to one of the publishers or somebody who would present your work out there so everybody could see it.
And any of the big publishers aren't looking at anybody like our, people just starting out. So we actually, in a very short period of time, we met this one guy, Randy Zimmerman.
Also at this point, before you get ahead of yourself, keep in mind that this was Marvel DC. There were no other independent publishers around.
Well, I'll tell you the ones that kind of influenced me early, because they had Wendy and Richard
Penny. Yep, Penny.
They were doing the ElfQuest.
Yep.
And then Sims was doing Cerebus.
Yeah.
And those were like the only two independents that were out there initially.
Right. Anything other than that was pretty much Underground or mini comics,
A lot of
mimeograph comics.
We love doing the things in our fanzine about the mini comics. There was people like Tim Kerrigan with Mighty Guy and Small Press Comics Explosion, the Ultra Klutz, all that stuff was just awesome that these guys were doing, and all mini digest size kind
They
of
were
things.
printed on, well, some of them were less than that. They were like a quarter size.
Yeah.
Each page was like a quarter of a sheet of paper, and they were like
I'm sure if you
two
met
sheets.
Matt
stapled
Diesel,
together.
he does his mini comics
Matt
kind of.
Diesel,
Yeah.
And
this was just after, say, Kevin Ciambita did A Plus.
Yep.
Comics out of Detroit. And Power Comics came out of Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
Just before that. Yeah.
Or two. Yeah.
What was that, Cobalt Blue?
Cobalt Blue. What was the witch character they had too?
We're dredging deep. We're dredging deep.
Yeah, we're going down.
It's where the Wraith come from. That Bill Loeb's got his start at. Bill
Yeah,
Loeb's
right.
Wraith, yeah.
And of course, Journey, where you were
And
first.
Journey was coming out from Aardvark Vanaheim. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where you came in. But about this time, we'd done like the second fanzine, which I did a terrible cover of. And I was looking at Stuart, and I'm like, we got to find some people to do some work. And so on our third issue cover, we stumbled into two guys, Jim Miller and Tim Dizon. And they did us a cover with Power Pack on our third issue of the fanzine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A big jump in
For quality in terms of for my artwork. So
I don't think I've seen a copy of that in a couple of decades.
I know it's been a long time. So then number 4 came along, and this is when we got a chance to meet Mr. Loebs.
Yeah.
And he did us a little cover for the fanzine. And, well, then I thought we hit it big time. I mean, we got, Bill Loebs to do us a cover. This is awesome. And, of course, after that, it was Don Simpson did us a cover.
a Megaton Man cover.
Megaton Man, yeah.
We found a gentleman by the name of Alan Oldham, who does a lot of music and still a lot of art, if you ever look him up. And he did a Johnny
DJ
Gambit
1000
cover. And that was number 5 of the fanzine.
He's a very famous DJ now out of Berlin.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then, of course, by number 6, it was time to put Randy on the cover. We met him.
Well, at that point, I had talked to Bill Loebs and had a story, I think, printed in the back of Journey number 11 that had Valentino's Normal Man crossing over with the main character on Journey, Wolverine McAllister. That was a lot of fun. A little Michael Taylor story was printed there, and that the thing that got me in with Bill and Nadine was the fact I sat down and did a JB Space story that Bill read and literally guffawed and was slapping his knee at and said, "We got to print this. We absolutely have to print this," because it had a really bad pun, and Bill's susceptible to really bad puns.
I as well.
Before he printed that, I did a story up where a little kid finds a copy of Journey under his bed and thinks it's a dirty book, a dirty magazine, because it's all dusty. And he sits down and reads it, and it's Journey number 1 that has Wolverine being chased by a bear. And then he gets freaked out, and I think his mom yells at him, and they take off running. So
help this old man's memory, Randy. Did we come to you, or did you come to us, or how'd that exactly?
I think we just started talking. I don't think it was one person over the other. So
that's what you do at conventions. There's times when it gets slow, and all the creators just kind of share their thoughts, mingle. There's usually after the con, there's usually a place to have beer and pizza, and a lot of things happen there. A lot of artwork drawn on napkins and placemats.
Oh yeah.
Back then, it seemed to be a lot easier to meet up with people because you couldn't just dismiss them to online because there was no online.
Right.
You either had to see them at a convention or you had to see them at a convention. I mean, that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, on some of those, and they weren't really after parties, but they're usually in a hotel or somewhere, and they had a lounge, and everyone was there. It wasn't segregated. The big stars weren't hustled away to another area. We all mingled together, and it was. I think it was a lot more fun.
there really weren't any big stars there for a few years. It was all artists, people that did comics. So
you didn't go with it. Wasn't with the shows like today where they got everybody coming in from all the TV series and stuff like that.
Well, I can say that when I went to those things, to me, some of those guys were big stars.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you were into comics, so
that's right. I was a fanboy.
It was around that time that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out. And I was still selling comics at that time on the side, and of course I ordered some. And I looked at that and I said, you know what? We got enough talented guys here that we can do something similar to this, I bet. And that's what kind of got our ball rolling, because we did a little thing like comics that influenced you, and that was the one that finally put the light on.
Was black and white. We didn't, we were doing black and white, of course, fanzine.
Why couldn't we do a black and white comic? All we had to do is a color.
We didn't really think about that before because all the comics we bought, for the most part, other than like the magazines, but all the comics were in full color, or at least 4 colors.
So then,
except for the undergrounds and the independents, Cerebus was coming out in black and white. Yeah.
Cerebus and ElfQuest, and then the Turtles, and I'm looking like, we can do this. There's enough talent here that we can do this too. We just got to get it organized.
And we can see that just from the progression of the fanzine. I mean, every issue got better and better.
Yeah, we got
and not just because we were learning about publishing and printing, but because there was just a lot more talented people who were joining in.
Yeah.
On the screen right now, what number of Fantastic Fanzines?
10?
10, number 10.
Yep, number 10.
Yep,
we got a hard echo coming back off of somebody.
Oh, sorry, we're leaning in again. Okay. Let us lean back.
There you go. And that's got Guy Davis and Mark Bloodworth on the cover, and a Fred Hembeck interview inside.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we were making steps. We were always moving forward. I mean, really, when we got started, we had no idea, and really no intentions of going anywhere specific. Arrow Comics pretty much, and through the fanzine, had a life of its own. I mean, it wasn't just Ralph and Stu. It was all the people that we met and contributed and, moved forward with us and helped us move forward that made it all happen.
Yeah, and when we actually got the chance to publish our first Arrow comic, of course, our guinea pig had to be Randy. So Randy and Susan was kind enough to get together, and
you wanted to roll, and you weren't quite ready to roll out what you were working on yet.
Right.
Sue and I had taken the idea of JB Space and literally built up an entire universe around it.
An Aniverse.
An Aniverse.
That's a great word, by the way. That's a great word.
Actually, that was Stu. If I remember correctly, Stu came up with the term of smashing animal and universe together and making it Aniverse.
I might have, but back in those days, it's a blur now. Some of the things I don't remember how they happened.
It's like any trying to keep track to any comic history. Nobody wrote any of this stuff down. Nobody knew that it was what it was going to turn out to or go on to be. That's why you have all these books that conflict about the origin of Marvel Comics and the Golden Age books. Everybody's memory gets fuzzy as you go along. So
yeah.
So I remember Stu bringing us that name. Go ahead, Daphne.
No. But and also because it's like we were all so young when we started this, we just didn't think of it. We were just busy putting books together, rather than thinking that we were going to have some kind of like historical impact at some point.
Right.
I was going to say, which was part maybe of our little bit of a downfall, because neither one of us had no business degrees or anything. We were just.
Yeah, we had no business being in business. So,
I don't think any of us did, really.
That's all part of the alternative and independent market, though, as you become a marketer, a business person, and you learn as you go along, and sometimes you make the hard mistakes, and sometimes you learn the lessons from other people. So.
Yeah. A lot of our lessons are in blood. Not to be dramatic, but it's like...
I just wanted to add one thing that was special about Arrow Comics is that we were all relatively local. There were many times when we had the Arrow Comics pizza party, and there was, Randy and Guy Davis and Mark Bloodworth and Vince Locke, and Ralph and I, and in one room together. And you'd have to record it to know everything that was being said. And who knows how many good ideas just were thrown out and disappeared into the void because so much was going on in those little meetings.
We'll talk about a massive comic thing later on.
That's in a bit. We've got time.
Yes, we got a lot of time.
And in the meantime, let me catch up on the chat here. Marv says, "Sorry, I took out the comment. I'll put it in." Oh, sorry. He's talking about his previous one about Arrow Comics. How'd you come up with Arrow Comics? Steve Farabee says, "Good morning, everyone." Good morning, Steve. Glad you're listening. Comic Book Black Belt says, "Good morning, all. Good afternoon. Good afternoon." Oh, yeah. That's Russ Leach. We want to congratulate Russ on hitting his crowdfunding goal for Only Death Can Save Us.
Nice.
Amazing book that I can't wait to read.
Yeah.
Jen Cool says, "How'd you get rid of all 5,000?
Some probably got thrown away.
Yes, there's a dumpster somewhere. Well, not anymore, but there was a dumpster that ate quite a few of those because they were in bales. They came in bales.
Yeah, just like the Flint Comics did, bales of 100.
Yep. Right.
Yep. Jen, thanks so much for listening. How big was King Con?
Oh, it was pretty crowded.
Yeah, it was more than just a little hall show. It was.
Yeah, I think we ended up moving about 500 to 1,000 copies of our little thing there.
Right.
I remember it taking over the whole Civic Center.
So, yeah.
Yes.
But all I remember is the program had a picture of King Teddy Bear as King Kong. It was an orange cover. Yeah. King Kong. Yeah.
I still have one of those programs.
Yeah, I do too, around here somewhere.
Yeah.
have to dust it off probably if I ever find it. Yeah.
Gary entrusted me with a bunch of the artwork from some of the people who drew the bears and stuff in his later ones. So I still got some of his.
Yeah, and how many? There were 3 King Cons. How many King Cons were there?
I think there were 3.
Yeah.
3? Yeah. And they were pretty big. I remember Roger Shomo put on the All-American Con, All-American Comic Con at 80. That was the end of 85. I think 85 started 86. That's when I know Aniverse 1 had just come out. Tales from the Aniverse 1 had just come out at that point. And I wish Jason was here because he'd be able to give us an exact date. He's a big fan on that
historian
kind of time.
Scribe.
Yeah, but I remember that's the first show we actually had a celebrity guest at, and that was Adam West.
Yeah.
And how begrudgingly he put the costume on.
Oh.
That was back during his dark period. He had a very dark time there for a while. When all he was stuck doing was comic cons and car shows.
All right. Yeah. All right.
Michael Kitchen, I'm getting feedback in. He says, "Night."
That's a familiar name.
Mike, how you doing, bud?
Thanks for listening.
He did some work in our fanzine. He did some, I think it was like, Where Are They Now? Or Who Are They Now? He would go and get into the history of some of the older characters or ones that you took for granted sometimes.
Sure. Just forgot about.
And he did a story in Realm 1. He did a little 8-page story in the back.
Oh.
Randy's like, let me see. Yeah, about it.
Everyone's digging now.
The first was it called?
I'm sorry.
I think it was called the first time.
I can't remember the title of it, but yes.
I would have brought my copy.
Nope,
my copies of the
I don't
Realm
have my copy of Realm 1
but you guys would be horrified at how I kept them.
Yeah, as long as you read them. That was what I always liked about doing our books. I could tell the people read them. They sent us letters. They responded.
My copies are literally they like were so used and read and reread that they were starting to fall apart. So I had them like in a brilliant moment. I had them coil bound together. A lot of people would have a heart attack if they saw I just took a coil binder, punched holes in it, and just put it all together.
Well, again, who knew they were going to be collectible? They were just great stories. Yeah.
I was literally using them, so I was looking at them, reading them, using them, the whole thing.
Yeah. Jen says, "Good morning, everyone. Got so excited to see Arrow goes on. Or Arrow on. Good vibes. Good. Joe McPhee says, "Good morning, all. Good morning, Joe. Joe again. I'm not sure how his campaign turned out, but I'm pretty sure he got fulfilled on Amazonia, the 10th anniversary show or the book. Joe's been around for about a third of as long as we've been around. So Marvie says, "I'd like to know, what do you miss from the old days?
Really
related to working on comics? A team or a team, a friend, something that you used to do that you don't do it anymore."
Wow.
Oh, the pizza parties, like you said, when we could get everybody together. I mean, I remember shoving how many people into my Chevy Vega and going up there?
That is a story I did want to tell, because I was usually in the hatchback. He was the smallest. I was thin at one time, and so. Oh, thanks, Randy. Here you can see it. But Ralph had a little blue Chevy Chevette, and probably people don't even know what a Chevette is anymore. They have to look it up. And there really wasn't. I don't think the seatbelt laws were a big deal back then.
No, they weren't in place.
We would drive from Ypsilanti. We went to Westland and picked up Vince. We went out to Warren and picked up Mark, and there was other people in the car.
Yeah, Tim
was Hamtramck, so he was in there. And as we drove up towards Clarkston, where Guy lived, eventually we had about 6 or 7 people in a Chevette, and I would get in the hatchback and just kind of get in the fetal position and just ride it out that last few miles. But it was all worth it, because we would have such a good time and such a creative time. I mean, it was just.
I remember all meeting over at Guy's house quite a few times.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was back when Guy had orange hair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did all kinds of stuff after a while, and then he got conservative again. So
yeah,
that's okay.
Well, Guy Davis went on to draw The Realm.
Yes, he did.
Yep, he went on
after doing Captain Quanto and
Space Corps.
That's not what I wanted to do.
That's the one where you seen him with
the Space Pirate?
Yes, the Space Pirate.
I can't remember.
Pull that up right there.
Yes,
there he is. Standing back to back with Felonious Cat.
Yes, with Felonious Cat.
Yes. Yeah.
Which brought on Night Streets. Mark ended up doing Night Streets for us, and who was it? Harlan Ellison said it was one of the best independent comics out there at the time. Wrote us a letter.
It's still a tight story. It's still a really good, well-written book. Yeah.
Well, that came out because Felonious Cat was a strip in the fanzine that Ralph was drawing, and Mark took over the art chores on that and
turned it into.
The next thing you know, we put it out as because he added so much to it.
It became his own animal. No pun intended.
Night Streets, my favorite cover is the one that's back behind your shoulders. I think I've got a larger version of it here that we can blow up right there. That's from Night Streets number 4. That's got Felonious Cat and Black Dahlia in front of the city. It's an amazing piece. And I suppose right now I should thank mycomicshop.com for a lot of these scans. A lot of these scans that you'll see today are from mycomicshop.com. Hope that they understand that they are the source for comics, and we give them a free plug, and hope they don't take any offense to us borrowing some of their scans today to relive old history.
So Guy came up to us, and after he was doing the Captain Quanto and the Space Corps.
Space Corps.
Space Corps. Yep.
A lot of that stuff was stuff that he had already completed, and we published it. Although I think he did some finishing,
Right?
You know,
But he was the guy that we earmarked to do the Realm. We just thought, that it was kind of a Japanimation style, and there wasn't a whole lot of that being done back then.
No.
Yeah, but it was definitely its own thing too.
We got Sandy Shriver to do the colors, which is just knockout great for the time.
Super vibrant. Yeah.
Yes.
And so, as the story goes, that I printed up, once again, 5,000 of those. And we did pretty well. We sold about, I'd say about 3,000 of those through Diamond.
Now you had those printed at Prinny, right?
All the
distributors, 3,000 copies.
Friendly Franks.
Franks, Capital City. Like I said, the list goes on. Glenwood. And I still was stuck with 2,000 of these, and we'd do a local show, maybe move 50 or 100, but I still had a whole lot. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do with all these? Well, we had a gentleman out of New England. I wish I could remember his name, but he always ran ads in the Comic Buyer's Guide. Do you remember the Comic Buyer's Guide?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
now, before you go on, let's explain that. The Comics Buyer's Guide was a tabloid newspaper that they used to mail out, weekly, I believe.
Yes.
Out to comic fans that had ads from other comic dealers from all around the country offering to sell back issues of books, plus articles and comic strips inside. It was very instrumental in comic fandom, in growing comic fandom, back when there was really no other means of communication other than the paper. This was before the net, before you could get online. I wouldn't say it wasn't before television, but before anybody was really taking comics very seriously. That there was a group of us out there that were
the publisher, I think.
They came in later.
Yeah.
But before that, it was Bill and Maggie Thompson. Or, John. Was it John? John Thompson?
No, I thought it was Bill.
Don.
Huh? Don. Sorry. Don and Maggie Thompson took it upon themselves to do a fanzine type magazine that was advertiser supported and subscription supported. You'd send them a certain amount every 6 months or every year, and they'd ship you a newspaper.
I looked forward to getting it all the time.
I did too.
It wasn't just a little paper either. It was.
It was.
It got to be really nice and thick after a while.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to go scavenger hunting for it.
No.
That's the best part. Like all those fanzines you were talking about, it was like a scavenger hunt trying to find fanzines. But
that was back before the direct market really sprung up. So it was a scavenger hunt to find most of the good comics out there. Because you had comics like Killraven, Amazing Adventures, and Captain Marvel that had very thin distribution. And you had to run out to your drugstore to and search and scour every week trying to find those books.
Yeah.
Romulus City Drugs at the front of my subdivision was where I got almost all of my comics in the early days.
Drugstore,
it was they had just changed from 20 cents to 25 cents when I actually started collecting. So for $5 a week, I could get the entire Marvel superhero line. I didn't get reprints or war or westerns, but their entire superhero line I got for $5 a week. So that was really cool. $5 was a lot of money back then too, though. But
supermarkets were like instrumental because that's where I found that and Barnes and Noble.
Right.
Well, this was before even Barnes and Noble. You had some bookstores that were independently owned back then, because I remember a couple of them in Flint that I knew that carried Spiral Racks. I started working at the Front Page bookstore chain mainly because they were able to get comics from the direct market, which meant that they got them 3 weeks ahead of when Ludington Daily News would drop them off, because Ludington Daily News was more interested in distributing Playboys than what they were in comic books. They just drop a bundle off every Thursday, and those books were usually 3 weeks late. So here in Michigan, at least, all of the comics on the newsstands were about 3 weeks behind what the actual release date on these books were. So I could hit during my junior, senior year in high school, I had a job in Flint, working at a hardware store, I would swing by Front Page, even though, there was an adult section, and pick up the comics 3 weeks early, take them to school, and go, oh, you like that issue of Avengers? I got the next one.
Right. Yeah, you get a little early. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. Ha ha. Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you that other than Ralph, I didn't know too many other people in our high school that were reading comics. I'm sure there was a few, but I didn't really know too many.
We skipped a lot of gym classes sitting reading comics. That's the way it went.
Yeah, well, Mr. Thomas was pretty cool that way.
Yes, in that way.
Steve,
do you remember the comic reader? The tabloid-sized comic reader? Do you remember that, man?
Oh, yeah, that came around about the same time, in the very late 80s. And even then, that was half the size. That was the size of an ash can.
Digest, yeah.
Digest size. Steve Farabee says, that's why we need you guys to dust off the old brains and collect it for future purposes. There we go. Glenn Ford says hello. Hello, Glenn. Go ahead.
Yeah, I miss Amazing Heroes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I miss Amazing Heroes. I don't know how far down there
that came out later.
Yeah.
They did an article on us, actually. The cover had Concrete. Remember Concrete?
Yeah.
From Dark Horse?
Wow. Yeah, I remember that cover.
That cover has an Arrow interview in a couple pages we did.
The great Paul Chadwick. I think that issue was a preview, and they covered Arrow Comics pretty heavily because you were kicking out such a variety of stuff at that point.
I think it was like 5 or 7 pages in there. I mean, a lot of illustrations, but yeah, it was like it was the history of Arrow Comics before there really was much of a history.
Well, I'm going to have to, I know I've got that back here too. I'm going to have to dust it off and look through it again. So,
but
again, I wish Jason was here. I know he just picked that up a year or so back. He's picked up another copy of it from somewhere.
So I had still had these 2000 Realm comics back to my story with Comic Buyer's Guide. The guy from, I think it was New England Comics back then, he called me and he said, I want to buy the rest of your books. I really like it. I said, all right. I'll give it to you at the same price, like I give to the distributors. He said, I'm in. He bought them all. And I was like, yes. Very next week, he puts out an ad that he says he's buying, big picture of the Realm, he's buying it for $3 and selling it for $5. And suddenly, everybody wanted that book.
That was a big jump for Arrow Comics. We had nothing to do with that marketing ploy other than
we got rid of these books.
Yes, but that really kicked it in. I think things would have moved the way they did anyway, but that was a jump start before there was Jumpstarter.
And what an idea on his part. Hey, I'll buy something that he thought he saw as quality, and then I'll just advertise it in there as buying it from people. So then people were scurrying around the shops trying to find it, so they could turn it and maybe flip it to him.
Yeah.
Because they had $1.50 cover price at the time, so
they could buy it for $1.50, flip it for $3, and he was selling them for $5.
But it got
the notoriety.
The notoriety. That's it exactly. So that didn't hurt.
And from there, things got real good. Everything that we published from there had a good print run.
Before we go any farther. There's me echoing again. Wonder how that.
Hi, John.
John Celestri says hello.
Hey, John.
Good morning.
Michael Kitchen doing well. Glad to see you guys.
You too, Mike.
Good to be seen.
It's the last fantastic fanzine before the Realm. That was where he was at.
Ah, okay.
Said Friends to the End with Pat Sandy, Fantastic Fanzine Volume 2, Number 1.
That's right.
In 1986, I think I've got a copy. We had a picture of that on the opening. But that had Batman on the cover. Was that Volume 2, Number 1?
Yep.
Yeah. Steve Farabee says, I can envision Stu with his nose pressed to the back window of the hatchback. Yeah.
And when you did conventions, did you like pile in the car the same way and you had boxes on your lap and the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a convention unless you had boxes on your lap.
Yep.
And we're gonna get to a trip that we made to the Chicago Con here shortly. that I think was Ralph, Stu, myself, and Mark Bloodworth that I remember real well. And I think it was in that Chevette because it was in that really small car. Joe McPhee says it is funded and finished in the next 2 hours. Oh, cool.
All right, good job.
Comic Book Black Belt says lovely cover.
Thanks.
Ralph, there you are again.
Hey, let me know.
Joe says, question, do you think concepts in writing were more developed then as opposed to today?
Oh, that's a good question, because I think, like, especially, with like the way television is right now, that there's a lot of good storytelling. And I think there's a lot of good storytelling in comics. I think there's more technological advance in comics than there's still quality writing. Now, I do got to say, there was one book that I really liked when it came out, the Prestige edition. It was that Camelot 3000. Mm-hmm. And I remember a couple of years ago, I bought a few at a comic shop. I said, I remember these were great. It was terrible. It was horrible. So
the Bruin art was awesome.
The art was wonderful, but it was terrible writing. I'm sorry.
I believe that was Mike W. Barr. But anyway, that's a story for another time.
But you know what? It wasn't that it was so bad. It was that it was pretty much standard for the time. There was a lot of, they were pumping those comics out.
The cool thing about Arrow Comics, especially when you guys were doing it back in the 80s, was the fact that you made sure each book that you printed was a different genre, was a different idea, and went in a completely different direction from the one before that. We had a Funny Animals in Space book. You followed that up with a hardcore fantasy book. You followed that up with a zombie book back when nobody was doing zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody.
What you would call Night Streets.
Then you followed that up with Night Streets, which was an urban crime drama. Then followed up with a superhero book.
Yep.
Yeah, and then Ralph couldn't resist doing a superhero book.
It's terrible. I can't write. Scripting is not me.
Another thing that was kind of something that we did is that if, all of the books had a title about a place or a universe rather than a single character.
Yeah.
We could go anywhere. I mean, if we had a character and it wasn't working out, they could be killed off and we weren't losing the book. We could go wherever we wanted. Deadworld. I mean, it was about the milieu, the mythos.
The other thing I liked about the Arrow comics was we always had an editor's page, which was usually done by a Stewart, and it gave you that home. When you read his editor's page, it wasn't preachy. It was kind of like, hey, this is what I'm doing on my day off.
I got a lot of that from Stanley's Soapbox. Yeah. I just loved his style there of kind of down home. Let's talk like we're all on the same level, and not like I'm the writer of this book and I'm much more important than anybody else. I mean, no, it's like we're a group of people we're fans. We're a community, and I think that's very important to keep the whole industry and the hobby alive.
And we did a What's Up page. So What's Up was always what's going on with Arrow Comics, who's doing what's coming out, what's going on. And so in the letters column, all of our books had letters columns. Our fans were writing in constantly, so it just felt like
there were times when we had 2 and 3 pages of letters in a book.
Yeah.
For all you youngins out there, these are now called blogs and message boards.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty much. But back then, they were just continuing what Marvel had done. Marvel really continued what started up in the old science fiction pulps, where they were printing letters and giving responses and making fandom. So, but really a progression from there.
We did one of the most interesting things with Deadworld in our letters that got answered.
Before you jump to that, again, let's go back to when New England Comics promoted you. The books exploded. And we saw, like from Tales from the Aniverse, Tales 1 had a print run of 5,000. Tales 2, which I have a picture of, that introduced Varsel's Vixens, actually had a print run of only 3,000.
Right.
And do you remember the print run on Realm 2?
Realm 2, I think, was 7.5.
7.5, and then Realm 3?
Then Realm 3 was 3, or not 3, 10.
10,000. Realm 4?
By the time Realm 4, that was exploded to 42,000.
Boom.
That was our biggest print run of all time.
Right now, people would kill for a 3,000 print run.
Yeah.
We'll kill for a 1,000 print run at this point.
Tell the story of Massive, because we got 3,000 print runs.
No, that's later. That's later.
Okay.
Let's try to tell this chronologically. Yeah.
Okay.
We don't want to throw people off and too much. But I'm still way behind on our comments. Let me catch up here for a second. Where'd we leave off with? Marv says, love to see creators, old style. People want that kind of comics. I'd love to see creators trying to bring back old school style. I think people want that kind of comics. I can't agree more, Marv. The nostalgia, the bringing back that feeling we had when we were 10 years old. Really miss that. Yeah.
Agree.
A lot of us do. Kaylin, the gamer, great summary. Randy Arrow was awesome with variety. Love it. Thanks, Kaylin. Thanks a lot for listening. I'm still crawling up here. Brolick Art Rixing says, thanks all. Cool. Nice to hear from you. Comic book black belt. Love to know those kind of things. Yep. Oh, wait, I am way behind here. Sorry. I'm still going up the list. So
there's a lot of responses. Yay.
Bear with me. Yeah, it's crazy. Love those. I love those colors. Yep, absolutely.
Realm comic, yeah.
Absolutely love them. Well, not just the Realm. I think we used Sandy as much as we possibly could. I know she colored Tales from the Aniverse 6 as well. With the Vixens running, Varsel running straight edge. Just beautiful color work. Glenn Ford says, just happened to stop by and say hi. Have a good show. Thanks, Glenn.
See it.
Yeah. The Bandito 133 Venus says hi. Hi, Bandito. Hope everything's going well. Oh, hi, Venus. Yeah. Jennifer says, did people make fun of you for being a nerd back then and reading comics? Yes, they did.
Yeah. Well, but
oh man,
we were nerds for other, for like a whole bunch of reasons too, not just the comics. But
yeah,
we were getting picked on regardless.
Back then it was comic books.
I tell a lot of people this story because when I was wearing my Captain America and my Hulk T-shirt to school in high school, I was not cool. But everybody's got them on now.
Yeah,
they sure do. Your comics before comics were cool.
Mm-hmm.
Summary, Randy, Brolick Rising. How did you guys feel about Initiative 2 and 3 page letter? Google now calls DS blogs and
Oh right, yes.
We already covered that. Right. Absolutely. Marv says, I gotta go. See you later. Be safe and keep rocking. Marv, we'll see you later. I know you'll listen to the rest of the broadcast when you get a chance. We are archived on YouTube. We're always available there for your listening enjoyment, all the way back to the start of the first Sunday Funnies program, only 2 months ago. So I really meant to say, how did you guys feel about Image Comics? Don't get ahead of us, Brolick. We'll get there. Give us a minute. We still have a little bit of time left here, so we'll get there. And the nerds shall inherit the earth. Absolutely, Steve. Absolutely.
Yeah, but will there be anything left?
That's a good question. Okay, Deadworld.
Next up.
Let
me tell you a story about good old Vince.
Deadworld.
He published a couple of things in their fanzine first, and we have had this idea.
Pretty freaky.
Yeah, I always wanted to do a zombie book. I mean, I didn't know why anybody wasn't doing a zombie book. Mm-hmm. So, and I loved all the Romero, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn, all that stuff. So I was going to try to pattern something after that, but I don't know if people remember seeing one called, what was the one with the zombies talk? Send more cops.
It was Evil Dead.
No.
Night
of the Living Dead.
Return.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have these talking zombies too in mind. So, but anyway, so we go to Vince to meet Vince a little bit more. We go down into his basement, and over his bed, he's got this big paper mache eyeball with these two claws just coming out of the sides of the eyeball.
Hanging by like fishing wire directly above his bed.
And I said, this is the guy we need. Yeah. So, paired him and Stu up. I told them kind of what I wanted, but after the first issue or two, they were off on their own. And they started exploring new dimensions and all kinds of creatures. And
we had some fun.
Now you premiered Deadworld in the back of round number 4.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That was probably the most influence I had on that book, other than saying roll with it. When Vince did a series, you could see that at the end of that, there was 3 biker zombies looking out over the group that I knew Vince was going to be the man.
Yeah.
There was no doubt about that.
And Deadworld came out when? Deadworld 1?
I think that was
87, the beginning of 87.
The great warning down there at the bottom, recommended for mature audiences.
Yeah, let's talk about that story. So, come around issue 4 or 5, the covers got a little more graphic.
No. I'm sorry to break in, but that was actually issue 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's when we started getting the letters from some of the people who were like, hey, we can't put this out on the stand. The retailers. We can't put this out on the stand.
I'm having to put a piece of cardboard in front of your covers because they're so graphic. What are you doing to us?
So before all these variant cover stuff started, I always tell them we were one of the starters of the variant cover.
This was that trip as we were traveling to Chicago with Mark Bloodworth, you and I, you guys and Ralph, you two and myself were traveling out to Chicago and going, we got a problem because we want to do these covers, but we don't want to have all the retailers ticked off on us or it'll affect the sales.
It will, yeah.
So I think between the 4 of us, we figured out maybe we should offer a variant cover.
Yep, a different cover.
We didn't call it a variant cover.
We didn't call it at that. No.
Our cover was not for wussies.
It was an alternative cover.
The tame cover.
The tame cover.
Well, those came. We started calling them that later on, but it was just
the tame cover and the not for wussies cover.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And so we went to Printy over in Printy Print and Litho in Canada, where we got the books printed.
Windsor, just across the river from Detroit.
Yes, and actually Windsor is south of Detroit, so it's just a little trivia there for you.
Just like, yeah.
But he goes, yeah, we could do this, and I was like, all right.
Never heard about it before. This was long before any company had ever thought about doing multiple covers. The Arrow did it out of necessity to the retailer.
Yeah, so and we didn't
them a choice.
You had to buy so many of this to get one. It was just
order what you want.
Order what you want.
Yeah.
It's funny. I have to ask GD because at the time when we printed our first issue, which I think was either in 87 or 89, we did like variant covers too, and I'm kind of wondering if he got the idea from you guys.
Yeah, well, there was another group that did it almost maybe a month or 2 after us. So they were on the same track, and that was the guys who did a book called Adventurers. I don't know if you remember that.
And at that point, they decided it was a sales gimmick. But for us, it was a matter of necessity. Yes. But it did really good for sales.
Right, yeah.
It pumped the numbers up. Yeah. But it wasn't intentional. They didn't do it as a gimmick. They did it to help the retailer actually have a comic they could put on their shelves and sell.
Right.
Of course, now that those covers are tame compared to everything.
I was going to say that too. Well, it's like,
that might not be that tame.
Yeah, but it's like now it's all about now it's like everyone's all used to like the edgy, gory stuff. So it's
But that's what I wanted to bring because there was none of that out there really at the time.
That was your whole purpose about doing Deadworld, is you wanted to do a gory zombie book.
Yeah.
That was the key.
That's why the covers were so graphic, because it was the gorier the better.
I wanted to do it like an ongoing thing. I didn't want to do just a one-issue boom. I wanted to do a soap opera, kind of like Walking Dead way before.
Amazingly like Walking Dead. Amazingly like Walking Dead. But anyway, your key point was the fact that you never knew who was going to survive. because
Yes.
real early on, I believe you bumped
Yes.
off what you thought was a main character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody was safe.
And why should they be in a world like that?
In a dead world. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's kind of funny, seeing, it's like, wow, it's like you guys really were ahead of your time at the time and didn't know it.
No.
Yeah.
We had no clue.
We wanted to publish stuff that we liked,
Yeah.
That's what it was all about. And I didn't want to publish a bunch of the same stuff. Like Randy said, that's why we did, Aniverse and Realm and Deadworld. Different.
Very genre specific, but in different avenues that folks have never tried before. Because the Realm, and this goes back to the when people are looking for a direction, it takes an arrow to point the way. The Realm spawned so many imitations once it hit big.
Yeah.
The Adventurers, the
hello.
There we go. That's kind of a combination of Aniverse and
it's like I found I can literally say this is a Realm baby, because it's like you guys were obviously publishing before we were, and it's like, and at the time I was still trying to find like kind of like a focus, an aesthetic focus for Tall Tales at the time. And then the Realm came out, and then it was to the races. It was just like, that's why my books are just so wrecked, because I was just studying every line and everything that was in those books. And this was the result of that. So it's like, this is a Realm baby, and then it's like Aniverse came, I found Aniverse after that, and then that got added in. I mean, it's just funny. That's why it's like, I'm sure people are wondering, what am I doing on this show? And it's like, well, because I have a Realm baby right here.
Well, I was plotting the Realm. One of my big influence, of course, I'm the Dungeon Master, so I did D&D a lot when I was young growing up. But when I was forced to stay home and watch soap operas from my mom, that was the only thing that was on back then before you had all the cable. So I had to sit home and watch soap operas. So when I was watching them, I loved how they weaved in and out. Like they would start something, build it up, take you away. Start something, build it up. And that's kind of what I did with the Realm, because I liked that roller coaster.
Not for nothing. I love the story too. It pushed all my buttons. That the Realm was like, that was it.
One of the fan letters.
I gave us money.
One of the fan letters we got was he was upset because we put a numeral on the door. Remember that?
Yes, we put on the indoor. It had a number 2 or whatever it was, and he said they wouldn't have had that back then.
Because the dragons were okay. Roman numerals are out of the question.
That's how much we knew the people were really taken into our story. That they cared
because
about.
A detail like that was, noticed.
And what was the other one about? You do the Brave Sir Robin song.
Oh, I did Brave Sir Robin, the song from
Monty Python,
the Holy Grail, and of course it had the word Camelot in it, and they said that kind of took them out of the story because it's not happening then. But I mean, I just threw that in because I'm a Monty Python fan too. But we're fans of things.
Yeah.
Like in Deadworld, for instance, all of my titles were rock and roll song titles because I'm a big rock and roll fan. So all the things that influenced me went right into them. These things too. The things I love, I want people to know about.
Yeah. So Randy, when you get that copy of Tall Tales that I sent you, look for the really blanted homage to the Realm in there.
Okay.
There's a scene in there that it's like, oh, this is I have to borrow this.
Cool. I'll look for that. Yeah. Can't wait.
Yeah.
So after the Realm and Deadworld, it was time for Night Streets.
Night Streets. Yep.
At that time, we had seen Mark. It was incredible. He did some fanzine work for us too.
Fantastic stuff. Yes.
A great designer. Do you have the copy, the cover for Fantastic Fanzine that he did with the logo on?
Probably not. But
yeah,
I don't.
Okay. But I mean,
the only Fantastic fanzine I have is that one. That's to go. But
we're going to tell you right now that was not Mark Bloodworth's logo right there. He did.
That was his illustration, though, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Well, that was him and Guy.
Yeah.
They both
collaborated. We did a lot of things like that. We did a fantastic fanzine jam issue that had everybody.
Everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Vince, Guy.
12. Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Cover of all the characters on the label of a jam jar. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And everybody was in it. Certain people, we handed out pages. You drew this page and you inked that page. And it was a mishmash of everything, but it come out pretty funny and pretty
We
good.
could never have done that if we weren't somewhat local to one another, because we actually got together and exchanged pages.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been a logistical nightmare to do that,
Any other way.
any other way. Especially, I mean, nowadays you could just email something.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was not the
Do it
case.
digitally. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it wasn't like that back then. But again, that's why the Friday pizza parties were so important.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I know John Celestri is in our audience right now. We just want to point out that Guy Davis, if you look really close at this, Guy Davis was very heavily influenced by rock and roll.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Came out. You can see it in Dark Off. You can see it in their noses.
Yeah.
And he doesn't draw anything like that now. In fact, anytime he sees one of those, if he was watching this program and were to see that Realm 1 pop up there, he'd cringe just a little bit.
I think Guy Davis now, he works for a lot with Guillermo del Toro now, right?
Yes.
Designing monsters.
Yes.
Yeah.
He has distanced himself from a lot of that early work that he did, which I find really cool.
Yeah.
Very
Oh, yeah.
stylistic and he had a very
Yes.
individual style that was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't like his own early work. No, I can understand that, but
We're all kind of like that, right?
owns it,
Yeah.
But out of everybody, I think Guy is the one that has evolved the hardest, because you can see it from the Realm to Caliber's Baker Street to Sandman Mystery Theater to the BPRD material he did. There is a hard evolution there with his stuff that's just amazing to look at.
I think like the Marquis was like the first time I go,
Marquis.
this guy is going someplace different, because that I remember. I don't remember if that predates or what comes after Baker Street.
I think it was right after.
It was after it, yeah.
right after. Yeah.
Yep, just within a couple of years. And then Night Streets popped up. Night Streets, I thought, always should have been a TV series.
Oh, it would have been an awesome series.
Still
Like I
has
said,
a lot of potential.
It was.
Go ahead.
Would you? It was. I was trying to think if it was the most well-written book of ours.
I
think
would
so?
say it probably was, yeah. It
It
was
probably
definitely, after lettering a couple of issues, I can definitely say it was the most wordy.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I like that. Most wordy. We'll go with that.
Yeah, I do. I got to say that Mark Bloodworth is, to me, he's the total package, because he can draw, ink, write, design. He really is, a talented, and I can say that because he's a really good friend of mine. So.
Yeah, he's an incredibly tight writer. Because how often did each issue of a series come out?
Bi-monthly.
Bi-monthly. Yeah, we weren't gonna rush it, or monthly was kind of the standard, of course, but
and after
we didn't want
that gave us where we were putting out like 2 books a month. Two of these and 2 of those.
And again, back then, this is before the direct market was just exploding at this point.
Yes.
So you really wanted that exposure. You wanted to sit out there for a couple of months just to be seen. And it did take some of the books time to catch on.
And that's when both Marvel and DC started catching wind of this market
thing. Yeah.
exploding. So they started coming out with these high glossy reprints of some of their older. They were flooding the shelves to flood us out. There's no doubt about that.
And the books that Marvel was doing directly for the direct market were a mess. Kazar and really shoddily done Moon Knight, and in my opinion, a few other just really horrible products to flood the shelves.
They were doing these high prestige. All of their Fantastic Four and Avengers stuff, where they were reprinting the Neil Adams stuff in this high prestige Baxter paper, blah, blah, blah. But all that was doing was, dominates, they only had so much shelf space.
Yeah.
So
and also towards the end of the 80s, you saw a boom in black and white publishers. Everybody wanted to start taking advantage of this, and there was some incredibly crappy material out during that time as well, right?
That helped contributed, I think, to the implosion.
Yeah.
You know, because we've talked about Inviso World a couple times. You know, you can only do that so much because this is all non-returnable stuff.
That was the whole point.
The retailer, you know, suddenly he wants to be in on what might be hot or what might be moving, so he's ordering X amount of copies, and then when he gets his substandard stuff that he can't sell, he's taking a bath on it. You know?
Yeah. And back then, you were always guessing where your next Turtles book is.
Yes,
right.
Book coming out, it's going to be the next. That's how the books like the Adventurers in the Crypt got the attention that they ended up getting, is because it's going to be the next Realm, or it's going to be the next Turtles. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you saw a flood of funny animal books. You saw a flood of fantasy books. Didn't see a whole lot of zombie books, though.
No, there was
not right away.
Not at that point.
Fanico was kicking out an occasional Gore Shriek at the time was coming out. Yeah. There were some horror anthologies coming out. You had some larger companies that had become independent publishers, like Pacific Comics and Eclipse, were kicking out about that time.
So suddenly the shelves were packed, you know, and
there was also an incredible variety of genres.
Absolutely.
Nobody missed a deadline, and who would be? Well, I love you, Tim Design, but he was probably the closest we had to a troublemaker. I mean, he went on to ink a lot of stuff for Marvel with a big run.
He was just contrary. He didn't agree. He had an opinion, and not saying that his opinion was wrong, but he often had opinions that countered the rest of us, and that's fine. I mean, that's fine. But I mean, there was never there was very little drama.
Yes.
You know, and I'm big on having no drama. You know,
that's a rare thing,
especially in a creative field.
Yeah, especially nowadays. Yeah.
Oh, believe me, Guy and I butted heads a number of times over things, but you know, it not in a, you know, we're never going to come to fisticuffs or anything like that. But you know, there was I asked for one panel. I said, I really want you to draw this like in a, you know, obviously his own style, but kind of this John Romita pose. You know, this is the pose I'm seeing for this particular thing. Nope, he just did not want to do that. So, and okay, I understand. He's the artist, I know. And generally, when it came to art, I pretty much said, you know what you're doing.
Yeah,
so,
we were pretty lenient editors on everything that we edited.
Yeah.
You know. What was special about that one panel that you wanted?
It was just something I can go on a little aside here, because there was something that I used to do with the Realm that was vastly entertaining for all the rest of the Aero Comic team, is when I used to do these stick figure layouts for Guy, kind of speed up the process, and everyone just loved how awful they were. But you know, because that way I just kind of wrote the script, and I made these little
stick figure suggestions.
Yeah, because yeah, and so on one of them, I really just had a vision of this page, and you know, I should have known better. Because you know,
Guy is
Guy, and really, when it comes to art, I should just leave that part of it alone. I'm not an artist. I mean, I can doodle, but no, and I can't envision the way an artist can envision. They can see things I just can't.
Yeah, there would be many times when we got stuff back, we'd adjust our dialogue quite a bit because, wow, you know, we don't need to say this. He done drew it. It's perfect.
Right. Oh, yeah. Dialogue was always redone at the end of the pencils.
Because they included a lot of stuff, you know. It was incredible.
I don't ever remember writing out a full script. Never.
Nah. And we didn't correct a whole lot. Our editorial skills were, oh, you got it done? Let me read it. All right, cool. Let's go.
Well, but we were fortunate to work with a bunch of extremely talented people.
Yes,
we didn't have to. I mean, it wasn't laziness. It was like, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't really have to
add much.
We didn't. I'll tell you a big fight Guy and I had was when he did that picture in the back. Was it in the back of Deadworld?
Oh.
And it said in the background against the wall was some graffiti, and one of the lines graffiti said "F the world," and I'm like, that's the one that goes over the line for me. I mean, I know we had a lot of stuff going on there, but I said that is the word that's a red letter word, okay, and so eventually he changed it to "Boink the world."
Oh boy!
Just I mean, he was doing it to make fun of me, okay, I mean, it's not like I've never heard the word before, never used the word before, but it just really struck me as the thing that was.
I would say most of our stuff, except for maybe the zombie book at times, but it was mostly kid friendly. Everybody could read it.
Yeah,
all the stuff.
Was it the nihilism of the phrase more than?
It was the word. It was that's all it was to me, was the word. And I was not personally offended by it, but I thought that's the word that's going to, people are going to see and cause an uproar. That's the one time that I kind of was like, oh, I'm afraid to say that word. Of course, you can do whatever you want now, but at that time, I thought it was going over the edge. We were doing Deadworld and stuff like that, but that was what was going over the edge. So,
even though you were labeled for mature.
Oh yeah, I know. It was kind of
still getting a feedback.
It was
feedback every once in a while.
It was just what I was going through at that time. I guess it just really struck me as something we shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many years ago.
So let's see. After Night Streets, we did System 7, but the less said about that, the better. Although Mark Winfrey was awesome, and the colors by Shriver again, Sandy. I mean, that was a beautiful cover.
I remember spending the time at the Arrow office coloring the back cover with magic marker. I'm getting an echo again.
Oh, well, we're standing closer again. We're getting all excited.
Yeah.
So then that pretty much ended. That's when the implosion started, and suddenly our distributors started going down, and
they owed us money.
Owed us a lot of money. I think our final tab was about $120,000 uncollected.
Yeah.
So I couldn't, and like I said, we weren't business people, so some of the contracts that I had signed with people were for books printed, not necessarily for monies collected. So I owed these guys a lot of money. So in lieu of that, I gave Deadworld to Vince and the Realm to Guy.
And they both turned them over to Gary, which was a good move because they then got to continue on.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was I mean, we could have just said, hey, we don't have any money, everything's bad.
Yeah, and give you the finger, sorry, dude.
Yeah, sorry. But those guys said, we just thought it was the right thing to do. We have to give you something. You've done a lot of work. And so we signed those books over. Right. That's why they don't belong to us anymore. That's why they're Caliber products, Do
you think Gary would have done Caliber Press if it wasn't for Arrow?
Maybe once the crow comes stumbling into his yard, but I don't know.
I think that was a huge trigger. I mean, he had two solid properties to open up on.
I mean, they went to Weeby up there with you guys for a second.
Yeah, we printed them we printed Realm number 13 and a Deadworld collection.
Yeah, and then when
I remember we were working on 14 too when you sold it to Caliber. So Caliber ended up printing from 14 on.
I don't know how Weeby paid. I know there was a big uproar about Guy not getting something about that Deadworld.
I don't think anybody got paid for Weeby. Weeby just kind of went south all of a sudden. Now that was back when the distributors were collapsing in, and numbers were incredibly hard to get.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Books that were selling thousands suddenly were selling in the low hundreds.
Yeah. Yep. So that was the thing. Like I said, we went from what were you saying, 23 or 21 distributors down to Diamond.
Eventually, yes, it was just one.
Is that what happened with Susan Van Camp too? Why Vasconcelos with Caliber, but Randy, you obviously still have
Probably knows
Aniverse.
more about that.
Well, with Sue and I, we were always, when Stu wants to talk about arguing with Guy, Sue and I were always at odds with Aniverse. Sue, we had two completely different philosophies as to how we were going to do the book. So very early on, once I think Arrow started running into trouble financially, I got offers to start another self-publishing company by another investor that was a retailer, and that went south very shortly after Arrow folded. Like I said, we were lucky to print a portfolio, an issue of 2 issues of Aniverse. I think that's what it was called at that point, the Aniverse.
Right.
We picked up Realm 13 because Guy was looking to get it out there in front of anybody. And that was before Caliber come in and picked it up. And then a Deadworld collection that we did with Vince. And I think Vince provided a cover and oversaw the what the actual production of the product was going to look like. But the investor quickly went south because of, I don't know how more blatantly to put it. He couldn't, his interests were lying elsewhere. And
Yes.
a lot of that ended up being between his legs, but that's a whole other story.
Right.
And that, like I said, that went south pretty quick. Sue went on to do, started really getting into painting. She was interested in fantasy painting anyway, was watching a lot of Bob Ross at the time and was picking that up. And then got involved with Wizards of the Coast and started doing magic cards. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Magic the Gathering. Yeah.
But before that, she was working with her husband, Mark Harmon, on doing stuff. She had self-published a book called Gatekeeper, of all things, that was about a bald female adventurer character.
And they were doing their own card game, wasn't it? Dragonstorm?
Yeah, they were working on their own card game. That took a few years to come out during that period, but really the money that they had collected from Magic really helped Dragonstorm become completely developed. And she had her own cottage industry there for quite a few years.
Oh, okay. So it's just, in the end, it's like everyone just slowly started going their own ways anyway. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, in the end, yeah. But then I started getting going out and having to pay bills. Everybody was struggling for money at that point, and ended up getting involved with a apparel company. And with his financial backing, I did Massive Comics. And Massive's a whole nother Massive. The name Massive came from a whole different direction back when we were working with Arrow Comics.
Go ahead and tell that story, Randy.
You want me to tell you? You guys are the guests here. You sure you don't want to tell it?
Oh, no, we should tell it.
It was kind of your little idea, and we just...
Well, this was back when I was working at the Arrow offices, so we were all brainstorming these ideas together, and we were real tired of these books coming out that were asking a high cover price. They were asking $2.95 when we were at $1.50. Yeah. So we were like, I wonder what would happen if we were to solicit for a bunch of books that we never started any work on. We just solicited them through Diamond as a, Diamond was the only dog at that point, wasn't it?
We just wanted to see what the numbers would be. It was like a test.
So we threw a half a dozen titles together and called ourselves Massive Comics, making a big announcement that we were coming out, and took out an ad. Didn't we? An ad and
just covers. There was nothing but
just covers. Just stuff we made off of the top of our head. There was Hero Bot. There was Captain Justice. There was Rebel, not Rebel Cop. What was he?
Maniac.
Renegade Cop.
Renegade Cop. That's what it was. Renegade Cop.
Renegade Cop. Okay.
Bunny Rabbit.
Bunny Rabbit.
Bunny Rabbit. Part of that. Yeah. Bunny Rabbit.
Wait a minute. These were all titles that you kind of had no intention of releasing, just to see.
Are people really
reacting to it?
Yes.
This was back during the black and white boom.
Right. Okay.
When everybody Solson was out, and Samurai Santa come out, and all of these real crappy books were coming out. We were like, well, the market's being flooded. What would happen if we were to do a set, come out as a new company, used all fake names, called ourselves Massive Comics, and just kicked out?
Yeah, all fake guys working on books,
everything was fake.
We got orders for 3,000
on all those
books, and decided it wasn't enough money for us to sit down and do it.
So there you go. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a series I'm trying to remember all 4. It was Bunny Rabbit, Renegade Cop, Hellspawn Ninja, and was it Captain Justice?
We did Captain Justice. We also did Hero Bot during that. Or not Hero Bot, but Battlebot. That's what we call it.
Battlebot, yeah.
Which turned into HeroBot Zero.
I'm a little surprised that Diamond didn't just outright ban you guys from the catalog after.
Well, they
that.
probably did if they found out who Massive Comics was.
Oh,
They knew who we were, but nobody. Fake address.
There was so much.
Wow, you were like all into this like fake. Oh wow, that's.
We wanted to see, like I said, I was saying, man, these guys are just putting out trash.
How can that be?
How can that be?
So literally over a weekend.
Yes,
it was quick.
Tell me that we can't do these covers and we're going to pull orders down? Aren't they checking? Aren't they doing anything?
Wow.
No, they weren't.
At all.
Distributors didn't care. They were just, putting it out there, seeing what happens.
We got a full page ad too with Massive Comics on it. I think that was the biggest expense for the whole experiment.
Meanwhile, my book is actually banned from the Diamond catalog because they said I didn't sell enough.
That was after. That was after.
Wow.
Crazy.
Long after.
Yeah. Wow.
But back when we restructured Arrow Comics, and we'll get to that in a second. When we restructured Arrow Comics, we had a rough time. That's when they started imposing numbers. But this was back to the mid '90s, if I'm not mistaken, mid to late '90s. That started. That they actually started imposing limitations.
Right. Okay. Absolutely.
Oh, look at that in the green room right now, coming in, Mr. Mark Bloodworth. Mark, how are you?
Hello. Better late than never.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for those Bunny Rabbit royalties, man.
Wow.
Yeah. Still a good idea, even if it was a little misogynistic.
Wow.
Yeah.
We liked it.
Bunny Rabbit was a Playboy bunny that got bit by a rabid bunny and turned into No. She was a dancer or a waitress at the Bunny Club. The Bunny Club.
Owned by a mob, and they had some new experimental drug that they were going to get out on the streets, and she kind of stumbled into the plot, and they gave it to her, but instead of, being a entertainment drug, it turned her into a kind of a Hulk type character. But she was wearing her Bunny Club outfit, so she's got bunny ears and fishnet stockings and everything, and she, frothing at the mouth. So she was Bunny Rabbit.
Wow. So it's like you guys were trying to come up with just like how bad does a book have to be for Diamond to say no? Wow.
Exactly.
Hellspawn Ninja. I mean, that was before Spawn, and
that was a few years before Spawn. Yeah.
No, that's McFarlane.
Yeah.
That is so funny.
There was BattleBot. There was Captain Justice actually sprung out from the Fantastic Fanzine days when Jim Miller had created a superhero called Corona, apparently named after a beer. But who knew? But anyway, we would have artists go through and design a 4 to 6 page superhero story, and then we would sit around on those Fridays at the pizza and beer party, and come up with dialogue for the story.
Mad Living kind.
Yeah, kind of mad magazine type. So it was hilarious to read with this serious, superhero type story. All of these jokes that were flying back and forth. So.
Yeah, what was that? A great transgender because it was a guy who turned into a girl.
Corona.
That Jim ran it serious for a couple of episodes, and then they had me do it, and I just turned it into a comedy. At the end of that, he turned into a woman. He got zapped by a ray from one of the villains and got changed into a female. Now, I don't think we ever took it from there. But most of the other stories that we printed in Fantastic Fanzine, he was a guy. It was Corona as a guy.
Yep.
So.
Mark, how's things going?
Oh, not too bad.
Introduce yourself to our radio audience.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Bloodworth, illustrator, storyteller. I worked with those two guys sitting over there, Ralph and Stu, way back. I have probably known them over half my life now, if I'm doing the math right.
You just want to seem younger than the rest of us, that's all.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not that much. I think 3 years. That's probably about it.
Our young whippersnapper.
Yeah.
Stu, you got a birthday coming up.
No, I don't think I do. I think.
I think not have a birthday coming up anymore. He's done with birthdays. Send your condolence cards too. So anyway, I'm an artist, illustrator, storyteller. I worked with Ralph and Stu. They were my start, my kickstart into the world of comic books, and I'll never forgive them. And from there, I went on and worked with Caliber and other companies, and did some storyboard work for ad agencies, and just worked for different corporations. Dabbling comics everywhere.
Mark, what did you do for Marvel? You did some Marvel stuff there for a minute, didn't you?
Yeah, I worked on Hellraiser about 30 years ago. Actually, almost exactly 30 years ago now. We're getting close to about 30 years ago when I got the call. So,
now we're really dating ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Long time ago.
Designed a couple characters. Worked. Did initially before they assigned me a story, I did some pinup pieces because they used pinup pieces to break up between the chapters of the different stories. So, because sometimes they would have self-contained short stories, other times they would have a chapter of a longer story going on, but they could always use a pinup by different artists to kind of like you get to the last page and be like, I continue next issue, or the end. There'd be a pinup, and you turn the page, get started another story. So,
and you did a couple of Deadworld stories and graphic novel, if I remember right.
Yeah. The Last Siesta is terrific.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Last Siesta. That was basically my swan song with Deadworld. That was it. I'm pretty much done with that. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. And it's funny because when you guys were talking about button heads with artists and writers, Gary and I used to butt heads when I started on Deadworld. We used to butt heads about just about everything because he was like really trying to do this more serious. Let's look at how terrible man is to each other and all this stuff. I said, we need to have a zombie feast on page 5 and 6. We really do. And it's like, but we don't need to get into all that gore. I'm like, no, you don't understand. We're about 10 pages in now. We need somebody's head to come off. Because there needs to be a death. There are people that are only reading this for that. So you got.
We were getting fan letters where people were bringing us like fingers and.
Yeah, it was a big finger with a chicken bone in it, like it had been
cut off in a packet of red liquid.
I was art director at the time at Deadworld. I'd spend a couple of days there at the Arrow offices, which is actually Ralph and Stu's apartment, writing letter responses back to the letter writers and sending. We would take scrawl stuff out on paper and burn it in the oven for a little while, or singe the corners and send it back to them, and they'd send stuff back to us. It was hilarious.
Wow. Oh yeah.
We did great. If you ever go back to the early Deadworlds, it was so much fun picking on people. It's like early trolling. Only it was from the mouth of King Zombie. King Zombie would write in and go, "What are you, crazy? Get away from me!"
Yeah, there was one convention. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Daphne.
No, because it's like I guess I don't know if it's weird or funny that you mentioned like the chicken bones and stuff, because there was one convention where we were at with Tim Vigil, and he always walked around with his name badge backwards because he didn't want anyone to see that he's Tim Vigil. And now that you say that story, it's like, oh, maybe that's why. God knows the type of stuff that Tim Vigil was getting.
Well, I have a few Tim Vigil stories, but we don't have to. We're talking about Arrow Comics today.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because, chicken bones and stuff just for making a comic. It's like,
Yeah. Can only imagine what Faust had been getting.
Yeah, really.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, because so Deadworld's getting that stuff, and over on Night Streets, I'm getting like these binders filled with detailed armaments and costuming ideas for the Black Dahlia, and it's just like, well, if he's riding a motorcycle, it's probably going to be this kind, and blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, oh my God, we'll do more research than I am.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
this guy.
But you're the only Arrow comic you were the only Arrow comic to get a gleaming letter from Harlan Ellison.
Well, yes. Yeah, and that was probably the high point of my entire life. But that, here's a writer I admire, and I get this fan letter, and I'm kind of like, oh, I'm gonna go hide now and draw. And
Who has the letter?
I don't know. I think Stu has the letter.
I have no
They
idea.
got lost in time.
Oh, no.
No.
We were so high and mighty. We got a letter from it was either Siegel or Schuster.
It's probably more high than mighty.
Yeah.
And we thought it wasn't good enough for us.
Well, no, it wasn't that. He wanted a lot of money.
Well, that
Was it
they couldn't pay him. Yeah.
Siegel or I can't remember. No, it was Jerry Schuster, right?
It was Siegel. Siegel was the writer.
It was, yeah. And and he had an idea for a story, and it was like, wow, it would be amazing to do this as a small company, but he needed cash up front, and I understand that. Create Superman, but we had no funds.
And at the time, he was destitute. So Eclipse ended up printing some work from him at that point, if I remember correctly.
I wish we could.
Giffen?
Oh yeah.
Who was it? I'm trying to think of who it was. McIver? I think we
Ted McKeever.
Ted McIver? McKeever?
McKeever.
Yeah. We turned him down too.
He sent some stuff,
stretchy,
and we didn't
like it.
Yeah, he submitted work to us. And,
yeah.
Oh well.
You win some, lose some. I got a little nickname. I'm called Mr. 80%. So I get it 80% of the time, and I miss it 20%.
Steve Farabee's given the creators those properties in lieu of payment was a classy move and a testament to your character. Thanks. Steve.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Comic Book Black Belt says too true, Glenn Fleming. Let's see what Glenn said up here. Glenn says, I really dislike the term old school. Its true translation is the best.
Old school is best school.
And I can take this opportunity to say we're going to have Glenn Fleming on next week. Glenn's from England and does a magazine called Comics Insider, and he's written a number of books. He had the opportunity to spend an afternoon with Jack Kirby. And had a few meetings with him and Roz that he's documented, and has done a documentary for in the past. He's got another version of that coming out here really soon.
Well, Glenn, I just want to let you know that the fact that you're from England, I'm not going to hold it against you because I'm from the really great place of Scotland.
Geek Insider says, good morning, Meredith. Hope you're doing well. Glenn says, Comics Unlimited. Sorry, Comics Unlimited. Sorry, Glenn. I'm horrible with names. Anybody will tell you that.
So,
go ahead.
Since everyone has like all the art, well, I guess now Caliber has a bunch of these properties. It's like, what are the chances of getting a reprint on all this stuff? Because I would love to get a replacement for my Realm comics and a proper book.
Well, I told Gary before he passed that he really needed to find a good colorist that could color the early Realm stuff in like an anime style, and that if we were to kick it out now, nobody would even recognize it.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because very few people see. He still reprints it Eric, I think, still reprints it once in a super great while, but I don't think they've done it lately.
Yeah, because you put that thing on Kickstarter, and it's like I'll be like.
I think he said they're working on a game or something of the Realm, or a board game or a D&D type game.
Well, Caliber, like what Mark was saying when he did that work for Caliber. Once they got those properties, they kind of took them off in different directions.
Yeah.
Than the rough and tumble actioners that Ralph and Stu had done with them.
I know. I at one point I approached Gary Reed and I said, "Man, I want to do this Realm story because I had this great idea about a couple of Dom's buddies are stumbling into that chest and they go back and they're like the Barbarian Brothers, if you ever seen that." Yeah. And he's like, "No, they don't do that like that."
And when they get there, Don is already like, he's like a king somewhere, and he's like in his old age when because crossing dimensions. So the time, we can do whatever we want with the time.
Yeah.
So.
And that would have been really cool too. That would have been really cool to see. Yeah.
Now you're making me sad.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get this guy to do a collection. Put everything together.
Once Gary got control of them, and yeah, he had his ideas for doing it, and that's fine because they were now his properties.
Right. Yeah, he was much more literary.
Yeah, but he's still
That's putting it nicely.
Reminded every once in a while that like there's a fan base for these things, and we've got to kind of deliver what the fans are looking for from time to time.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I got a bell for that. Yes.
Same thing with like you were saying with Deadworld. I approached him with doing other stuff with that, and he did, and that's why we ended up doing our own book, The Dead, because we couldn't do Deadworld.
Yeah.
Once you gave away the rights for Deadworld to Vince sold them to Caliber. A few years later, you decided to come back and do Arrow Comics again.
Yeah.
And did The Dead.
Yeah.
That was with Jeff Lafferty and Jason Moore.
Yep. And that lasted just a couple issues because, there's still the one distributor. So we kept hitting a roadblock, and that was before, we knew anything about, the internet. That still wasn't even around.
Yeah. Yep.
So we kind of pulled our book back then.
It was around, but it wasn't like it is now. There wasn't,
I think that was just CompuServe was coming in.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah. America Online.
Oh, boy. America Online, yeah. That's how old it was, kids. Yeah.
But then after that version of Arrow is when Randy started up Arrow Point 3.
That was a few years later. We started up Arrow Comics with myself and Scott Moore decided. And we, at that point, before that happened, though, you guys were doing Oz with Caliber.
Yes, we were tired of the business end of things. We just wanted to create comics. So
well, I don't think we were good at the business end of things.
Yeah.
Focus on your strength,
So we decided we were going to do Oz with Caliber, and Gary treated us fair, and we did it, and it was one of his better selling titles.
The great Bill Bryant, how many issues of Oz did you do?
A local phenom, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody could turn a book around faster than that.
Yeah, he could pump
we
out
could
the
actually
pages.
do a monthly comic with him because he was that fast.
And he goes all the way back. He goes all the way back to those early days. He was doing more commercial artwork for quite a few years. But his first, he had done some work, I believe, for the Black and White Marvels and had worked for A+.
Yes, he did way back. Yes, he did.
I met Bill when I was 14 years old.
Say what?
I met Bill when I was 14 years old. One of those old. I don't even think Lester had. I think it was still a Shapiro. I think it was still Shapiro doing the cons.
Oh yeah.
For me, for $1.
Yeah.
And it was a sketch. I wish I had it, but I sold it to a friend.
Now, how many issues of Oz did you do for Gary? 25?
20 regular issues, and then
It was 5 specials.
and then we did 3 miniseries each. So
Wow.
They just recently collected the Romance in Rags.
I think it was like 31 total comics.
31 total. And then when we did restarted Arrow Comics, you're the first ones that we contacted, and you wanted to bring Oz back to Arrow, or over to Arrow, and we started Dark Oz.
Yep.
And we did Dark Oz for 5 issues as an Arrow comic.
And then you did Land of Oz with
Gary.
And with Bill Bryant and Gary Bishop was writing that.
Bishop, sorry.
I don't have any examples of that, but pegged up, ready to go. We were more.
It's really amazing how that artwork still holds up after all these years. Like, you could put that cover on the stands right now, and
Gary,
even the Dead one from before. It's like
look at the Realm. I mean, even the stuff we were doing back in the '80s still holds up. And we're great.
Like that stuff you could see on the stands now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then with Arrow Comics, it was Arrow Comics 3.0 is what we like to refer to it as. We also did The Dead for 3 issues.
Yes.
With Matt Mason.
Yep. Major Matt Mason.
Well, I don't think he minds, but he is occasionally in the chats here at Indie Volt as M3SOZ.
Oh, okay.
He did some amazing work back then. My biggest regret with the third version of Arrow Comics is our numbers were so low. We were very rarely able to pay anybody other than copies, and it was really tight. It was very much a labor of love. And with Scott Moore and I believe Scott invested $5,000, and we just kept turning that $5,000 over and over and over again. Most of the books we were doing at the time, I think, were bi-monthly, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think we tried to do anything monthly.
Right.
We kept it at bi-monthly, and that's that was difficult enough. So we started out doing Dark Oz and Arrow Anthology to start with, which was a collection of short stories. Mark had I think a 2 or 3 part Night Street story that ran through there.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, I did. Yeah, it was 2 parts. Yep. So it was one story, but it was broken up into chapters. Yeah.
Yeah, we had Dark Oz literally jump into Land of Oz, or kind of metamorphose into Land of Oz during the Arrow Anthology book. We ran flip covers on that. It was a 64-page, each anthology was 64 pages and had a flip cover. There were 2 different covers on both sides. You turn the book over and read in halfway on one side, and turn the book over, read in to halfway on the other side. So we had a lot of stuff printed, a lot of really good material back then. Andrew Peepoy, who was in on the show a couple of times, is Simone and Ajax. We printed Simone and Ajax in the Arrow Anthology, and then finished off that story in a 1-issue Arrow Spotlight that was kind of a Christmas tale, and finished off the origin story of how Simone and Ajax got together. He's planning on kickstarting that into a collection, the black and white material, here next. He just had a successful Kickstarter doing a collection that he's doing in color that ought to be out here in a few months. So I think that's going over to Indiegogo on demand, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong though. But that was Simone and Ajax over there, if you want to see. It's the adventures of a young girl and her friend, not pet, but friend, dinosaur named Ajax. But yeah, over at the New Arrow, we did The Dead. We did Dark Oz for 5 issues. You guys crossed over with Wonderland for 3 issues.
Yep.
Had Alice running through that, and I thought I had a copy of that cover. I think I ran one of those covers in the opening.
One of my inspirations, or one of the reasons I did the Oz book, was DC had done a Oz Wonderland War, a 3
with Captain Carrot.
That's when I found out all this stuff was in public domain. And I said, well, what if I took this story and made it into a hardcore fantasy? I thought that would be awesome. So there it went. Read all the famous 14, I think they call them, and they were all in public domain, so I got to pull as much out of that as I could and wanted, and played around with it.
Well, we just took characters and made our own stories. And
like all our books, at least I was doing, it's always about friendships. It's always buddies and pals. And I just thought that was important.
I went to a couple of Oz conventions. I went to a big one in Indiana one time and did a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. And those people had never heard. They weren't comic book people so much, so they had never seen it. And we had, I don't know how many issues out by then. And so the covers were going by, and they on the back while I was talking, and they were quite surprised. For the most part, I'd say 90% positive. Because they do, the Oz people, they do a lot of, they take that stuff and run with it too. So nobody was like,
it's in public domain.
There's a few purists that, there's purists in everything that, don't like anything to change. But for the most part, got a good response from that audience too.
Glenn Fleming says a really interesting panel, Randy. The insight to Arrow and the 80s stuff is fascinating to hear. Thanks so much, Glenn. And unfortunately, we are closing out on the hour, or on the show, actually, the 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, Randy, I got to tell you, when we were sitting down to do this, I'm thinking, what am I going to have to say? What am I going to talk about? We have been talking for almost 2 hours. So I guess there was something to say.
Yeah, and I just want everyone on this panel to know that it's like, I know that when we start our comic book companies, we never expect it to like be this larger thing, this thing larger than us, I guess. And I just want you guys to know that it's like, you guys have been such an influence on my work and the work that I do and how we do stuff, that it's like, I want you guys to know that it's like, you made a difference. You know, you had, not to be all corny, but it's like, you know, you guys had an influence, and continue to have an influence, and yeah, and this, and you know, and I want you to be just as happy that there are Realm babies and Aniverse babies out there. Yeah, it just you know, it's a gas, and I think it's a gas being kind of like a part of that, even tangentially.
Steve says, where can I get a set of Arrow underoos like Ralph was wearing? I'll tell you, Ralph dusted that off of it, out of his drawer this morning to wear just for the show. So we did a number of Arrow shirts back when we were.
Arrow had it was a little too low. I have an Arrow.
You might see those again. Arrow Comics was always, at least to me, Arrow Comics was always a commune type situation. Yes. Everybody that worked for Arrow owned or just about owned any property or IP that they ran. Back when Arrow 3.0 was coming out, everybody had their own, and we printed a large number up until 2003 of different products, and everybody owned their own stuff. There was never a question of percentages, or that only in the profits. We would give out a percentage of profits whenever there was any, and there very rarely was during Arrow 3.0, because at that point we were only dealing with Diamond, and we were lucky to get numbers of 500 or 800, and I had to turn away books that were pulling in numbers of 500. That really became the discouraging point and why we stopped printing, because at that point we were barely making enough to be able to turn over that print run money every time. And we flopped that so many times. Just so proud of the books that we did. So proud of Arrow in general. Off of that 5,000 investment, just books after books after books. But again, the disappointing part was nobody ever got paid. There were very few books that pulled down a huge amount of profit. I think Spank number one
against Roadblock, and Roadblock Diamond was just
constant. One of Scott's, outside of his main investment, the fact he was running his own comic shop, Galaxy Comics, up in Saginaw. But Scott's main responsibility at Arrow Comics was to have to deal with Diamond, because I couldn't do it. Back when I was Massive Comics, I ran into enough roadblocks at that point that I knew I didn't want any contact with them directly. So I had Scott always handling them, and even then there were limitations. There were all sorts of hoops that we had to jump through in order to, and so many more that we heard from other creators that came at us and said, you know, they made us take out an ad for $800 that we had to swing. And we were doing the same thing. We had to take out a half-page ad every time we solicited for books in order just to be seen. And then we had to hope it was next to the listing. Then we had to hope that the listing wasn't edited, which they did way too frequently. And we played a few games with them, just like with the Massive Comics things that we discussed earlier. Back when Arrow was coming out, I was so disgusted with the way we were being treated. We did a few things back at them that turned out to be really profitable, that surprisingly, the only way that we could get any notice, any really hard numbers, was to play games with them. With
Shiro Otomo lives.
What?
Shiro Otomo lives.
Shiro Otomo lives. That ties back to
Butterfly Gun.
Folks, we're talking Arrow Comics with Ralph and Stu, Ralph Griffith, Stuart Kerr, the creators of the original Arrow Comics, and Mark Bloodworth, the creator of Night Streets, the comic Night Streets, which really, when's the last time that was collected, Mark?
Oh, that would have been about 30 years ago.
That desperately needs a collection now. Have you ever thought about crowdfunding that?
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I have not thought of it. Other people have thought about it. I have not thought about it.
Okay.
About putting, you know, and then to go back and try to collect all of that stuff. I mean, Larry and I, probably a couple years before he died, I would say, talked about getting everything together again. But, you know, neither one of us really had the time to go through and scan a lot of stuff. And
effort.
put it all back together again. Because
Just like the
scan. Because even when the first two books were put together back in 90, I think they both came out in 90, one at the beginning of 90 and one person at the end of 90. That was also done photoshopped. There were no, you know, scans of anything. So everything would have had to have been rescanned. I mean, not even rescanned, would have had to have been scanned. And a lot of the old pages, I mean, by that point, I had sold a lot of stuff. So you basically just be taking stuff off old comic books.
Yeah.
You know, we're trying to clean them up. So that just never got around to getting done. I'm sure somewhere out there, somebody's got their own license up to read online somewhere. It wouldn't surprise me. Because you can find anything free out there for this.
Yeah.
So
It's unfortunate that that's fallen really out of print because it was really a good series.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, it's a self-contained story. You know, at this point, I mean, it's just one thing, and somebody can find it. And, you know, people have asked me about, you know, are you ever going to do any more of it? And it's like, well, you know, I've got ideas and timelines, but I just don't have the inclination. I mean, it's a lot of work. You know, if I won the lottery tomorrow and had, you know, a few $1 million to throw around, sure, I'd hire people to write it and draw it and put it all out, you know.
Yep.
But it's like, to me, it's like, it's its own little time capsule, you know. It's like, you know, it's its own little thing, you know, move on and do some other stuff.
Right. Ralph and Stu, what about Dark Oz and Wonderland? Has that ever been collected?
I don't think so.
No, well, like it's,
I think they collected the Romance and Rags and Straw and Sorcery.
Yeah, which were the two Scarecrow spin-offs. But, no, and we don't really...
And they've collected the Oz stuff. There's
the regular, but we don't have full control over that. I don't know, do we? Can we do something with that? I don't think we can.
Yeah, well, we can do anything with Oz still. That's still ours.
All right, yeah. But I mean with the previously printed issues.
Yeah, well, we got to...
Yeah,
probably with Caliber. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
like the War of the Worlds book that I signed over to Caliber, they have complete control over how they do that. So I just get a royalty.
Right. Hey, and a credit card, right?
And a credit card. Yeah. And I guess a pillow and who knows what else that you get all around the Caliber site. So, but anyway, everybody, I want to thank you so much for coming on. We're going to have to do this again. I mean, all we did was scratch the surface, really, of Arrow and its capabilities, and
a lot of con stories. We didn't get to tell a lot of conventions.
A lot of convention stories. We got a lot of stories. Yeah, but really,
we do about 4 more of these.
What?
We could probably do 4 more of these.
Yeah,
and everybody else. Yeah.
But you'll find comics like the independent market, the alternative market especially, are a set of dominoes. One tips over, hits the next, hits the next, hits the next. Without Arrow, it would have been very difficult for Caliber to have existed. Caliber spawned Scout and Aftershock and all of these other Scoot now, and all of these other little brands that have popped out off of Gary's influence, that was off of Arrow's influence, it's all feeds in to this great big long line we call comics, the comics industry and alternative comics.
Yep. So. And I want to say thanks to all the fans out there.
Absolutely.
You guys are the bomb.
Welcome.
The reason I still am doing this stuff is because I remember finally of everybody writing in and commenting, you know, how much they enjoyed the stuff we did. So it means a lot.
And I think Arrow is well overdue to get the notoriety that it deserves and to be recognized with its place in history. Just to get everybody together and say, hey, Arrow Comics, back in the 80s, that was something, you know?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay,
you guys wash hands. Another great show, Randy. Talk to you next week. Same bat time. Absolutely, Glenn. Our next show we'll have Glenn Fleming on. Hopefully, Daphne. Maybe Sam.
Sure.
Vera from the Crazies as
Yes,
well.
yeah.
And we shall see. They have a project that really needs to be pushed. Brian Langley says, good morning, Brian. We are just about to go out the door. So any last words, Mark?
It was great being here, Randy. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on. Any last words, Mark?
Nope, that's it.
Nope. Okay.
That's all right.
Oh, folks.
Ta-ta for now. All right, everybody, take care.
Ciao, everybody.
Take good care of yourselves. We will see you soon. And remember the immortal words of Keanu Reeves.
Comics are awesome.
Comics are awesome. All right, everybody. And
goodbye to you.
Take care. Take good care. Be healthy. Thanks again for listening in, everybody. And everybody out there, take care. Stay healthy. We'll see you soon.